Good morning to all of you who are here. Make the meeting here. There's going to be a slight change in the program from what you see on the agenda. We're going to come back to the formal welcome from Ms. Sturgis and Mr. Moses. We're going to move on to what we call a fireside chat. The whole idea behind the fireside chat is a chance where you have to listen and hear the experiences of individuals who have had lung cancer and hear what it's like for them to go through the process of diagnosis, symptoms, and even get into some things about treatment. So we're going to start off with who's going to be our moderator. It is Tanya Phillips. Ms. Phillips is National Director of State Partnerships with the HEAL Collaborative. We'll explain more about what HEAL and all that sort of thing is in just a very few minutes.
Good morning, everyone. So I would like for you to share a little bit about your cancer journey. We will hear from some experts later about lung cancer, about navigation, about excitement, treatment. But oftentimes, hearing from a patient, it resonates a little bit differently. So if you could you share your current age, your age at diagnosis, and what was your journey leading up into your diagnosis?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm so very grateful to be here with you all this morning. And this is a fabulous turnout. So I'm thankful that you gave us a part of your Saturday to be here. My name is Colette Smith. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, and a friend of the HEAL Collaborative. And I am a non-small cell lung cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at the age of 50. I'm currently 59, and I'm living with my upper left lung removed.
Those who are joining us by Zoom, can you hear me now? No?
Wait. That's good.
Good morning. I'm Zoom. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. That's good.
Thank you.
So it's working. It's fine. Reverend McDowell, can you hear me now, sir? Okay, we'll keep working on it. Okay. So, Ms. Smith, you talked about you have been living through this journey for 9 years. Can you share with us, you said you were not a smoker.
I was not a smoker.
Did anyone ever approach you just in general about lung cancer screening? Ask you about if you were a smoker back then?
I was never screened. I was never approached about lung cancer screening. In fact, I was on all of the refreshment shack and had to be a smoker to get lung cancer. It wasn't until my journey that I understood that lung cancer doesn't only afflict non-smokers, it afflicts smokers as well.
Right. So typically, a clinician, and we'll have someone later on who can speak to this more directly, would offer screening to those who had a history of smoking. But I just wondered if in your journey at any time, if anybody had asked that question. How were you diagnosed? What led to your diagnosis?
My diagnosis on my journey was an interesting one. About 2 years after my husband was diagnosed and had his own cancer journey, I started having symptoms. And in thinking back, I don't think the symptoms were relevant to lung cancer. I had a rapid heartbeat. And it was happening over the course of several days, and it didn't feel right. So I decided I was going to go to the ER. It was late at night, and thankfully, some physician said to me, I see you were here 2 weeks ago, and I had an outpatient procedure. He said, it could be blood clot in your lung. And he said, let's do a CT scan. And what the CT scan was, it's a diagnostic imaging. It puts you in a donut hole, and it takes a look at your lung. And I could see from the look on his face when he returned that something was wrong. He said to me, we didn't find any blood clots. However, we found some nodules in your left lung and in your right lung as well. He said, I don't think it's anything, but I want you to follow up with your primary care physician in 6 months to figure out what's going on. I'm a hypochondriac. I followed up right away. Me too. So I'm in good company. So, through me following up, and I have a really good relationship with my primary care physician, he said, we're not going to go the 6-month route. We're going to look at this again in 4 months. And he explained to me of all the possibilities. And of course, I Googled some, which really wasn't the best. But fast forward, I got to the point where we were at the 4-month mark, and I repeated the CAT scan, which is the CT scan, looking at the lungs, and the nodules were still there. I remember on my way to work, and I got a phone call from him, from his cell phone, and I said, "You're supposed to be on vacation. Why are you calling me?" He said, "Because I want to prepare you for a PET scan because the nodules are still there." And what a PET scan is, it's a more in-depth diagnostic tool, if you will, and it takes a closer look. And we were not able to figure out at that point, still at that point with a PET scan, we were not able to figure out where I was with regards to being diagnosed. I'm going to hold you short, just a short.
I was a smoker. I smoked cigars, thinking I could just suck it in, suck it out, and I'll be all right. And when my neck swelled up, my lip notes and everything, everything swelled up around me, and I was trying to be tough, wasn't going to the doctor, and they kept telling me, you need to go, you need to go. And so it got so bad that I couldn't breathe. And so then I finally went to the ER, and from there, I was in the hospital 7 days. About the 3rd day, they came back after my biopsy. They came back and told me that I had lung cancer. And I was like, I got what? I got lung cancer. And they say, and you got small cell lung cancer. And it's one of the most dangerous, fast spreading it is. And I was like, okay, so where do we go from here? They said, we got a marathon to run. You got a marathon to run. I said, well, let's lace my shoes up and let's go. And let's do whatever it takes, I need to do, let's do it. And then they told me, they said, be prepared. You got 3 to 6 months to live. I said, 3 to 6 months? I'm 67 years old. I'm getting ready to retire from 40 years on a job. And now all of a sudden, my plans and God's plans are different. And now I got 3 to 6 months to live. Yes, and I kind of laughed about it. And they said, how can you have the spirit? I said, because I believe in God. And his plans and our plans are not the same. And I took it in stride. And I said, whatever I could do to help somebody along this journey, I'm going to do it. And I got the faith, and I believe that I will be healed. And that's just where I was at. And I went through all the chemo, I went through the radiation, I rang the bell on the radiation, and I'm doing great right now. And it is by God's grace that I'm still here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to come back to you. I know, Miss Lynn, you're on a lunch break, so we'd like to hear from you. And can you tell us,
barely hear you.
Were you a smoker? What type of cancer you had, and were there any barriers on your journey?
Lynn is directed towards you. She asked what type of cancer you have and were there any barriers along your journey?
I had small cell lung cancer, and I had a team of great doctors, great people around me. There was no barriers. Everything was just like set in place. On my 4th day in the hospital, they started chemo. And 3 days later, I was out. And every 3 weeks, I went to chemo. I've just, like I said, I've had a team of people that around me that love me and showed a lot of love. And the doctors would come in the room and they would talk to my wife and my daughters and just tell me what to do. And so I'm a good patient. I do whatever they tell me to do because like I say, I believe God has a plan for me, and it's to share my story and tell people, just like the lady said, with her husband and her having a journey, You know, we all got a journey to go through, but we can still help somebody through what God has given us. And I believe he gave this, like I told a lady in chemo, I said, God probably gave me this so I could meet you. And she
Absolutely,
said, what he did,
absolutely, Reverend McDaniel. Um, I'm going to ask you to pause for just a second. Lynn is
okay,
on her lunch break, and I would like for her to be able to share her story. Can you share with us if you were a smoker, what type of lung cancer you were dealing with, Lynn, and your part of your journey, any barriers you may have encountered? Mute.
Lynn, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes, we
ma'am, we
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Okay. I was a smoker. Um, and I did develop, they said, small cell lung cancer. I got that diagnosis in 2021, March the 20th of 2021. Um, they said the same thing to me, how long I had to live because they hadn't done a biopsy. So I had to, patiently wait, nervous as all get out, waiting on them to do what it was they needed to do, just so I can see how far along the cancer was. Um, and then once they did that, and they'll tell you, well, it's going to come back, and most people have. I listened to all that, but that wasn't in my plan. I just believed that whatever it was I had to go through, let me go through it. This is my journey. Let me go through it because I'm going to get through it. And I kept saying that. And no one said that that only lasts 9 months. So it came back. And then I went on ahead and when it came back, I was hurting. And they said it went to the ovary. So it left the lung, went to the ovary, and eventually it went to the brain. And I was still like, oh, okay, what can we do? Let's get this together so I can keep going. What happened was I had always heard about clinical trial, always. When I heard about it, nothing of it. Not laying in bed, and I Google. So when I went to my oncologist, I had asked her, I said, what about clinical trial? Because I thought that it had to have been something else out there. If you're giving me an immunotherapy and this immunotherapy hasn't worked, I need to try something else. So we got past that. I finally got a chance to, participate in the clinical trial. And that has been the best thing ever. When I get my scans, I'm clear. And I tell people all the time, get your checkups. But one thing that people need to do, because
Lynn,
your
I
insurance
heard you say something.
is
Can you
going to pay
repeat
for
that
gas.
again where you are right now? I heard you say something about your scan.
They're clear. Can you get that?
Can we give her a round of applause? They're clear. And I apologize. We got a late start due to technical issues, but I'm going to ask each one of you. You are patient advocates. Starting with you, Lynn, if there's one thing that you can share with this audience today, what would that be?
If someone that is a smoker, I would share with them. You have to go in and pretend like your chest hurts. I'm having a heart attack because our insurance is not going to allow them to just give you a chest X-ray because you feel like I want to see if I have anything on my lungs. You're not going to do it. So you have to play the game that they play. Go in and act like you're hurting. Let them give you an x-ray so that you can feel better. Because if not, it could be too late. You can have it and not even know it until it's too late. I advise any and everybody. Do if you walk in and you say, "Oh, I hurt so bad up here." So you're going to
Thank,
ask you, but they're
thank
going
you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn, for sharing. And I'm sorry to cut it a little bit short. Reverend McDaniel, can you share one thing with this audience as an advocate? I believe you're muted, sir.
Unmute.
I said, that one thing I would say would be not to smoke. You know, of course, I know you can get it without smoking, but just like Mr. Bell said, uh, do the trials, do the checkups. You know your body. You know, ask questions. You know, and like I say, be a good patient.
And from the beautiful
Bathroom outside of this door. If we have your children, they are fine. If having issues, I'm gonna come back and forth and I'll get you if needed. But thank you guys for coming and welcome. Oh, and please, if you can put your phone on vibrate so that everybody can hear. And you don't have to be stressed about the test. So I seen some of y'all like, what's this answer? Don't worry about the answer. We want to know what you know right now. So if you don't know, it's fine. That's actually a good thing. So we want to see that this teaches you something and make sure that our people are getting something out of these classes. Okay? So don't stress yourself. You don't have to know the answers. I don't know all the answers to them either, so it's fine. To the pre-test. Don't worry if you haven't started yet.
Yeah, if you look in your package, you'll notice there's a pre-test. Just fill it out. The idea is for you at the end of it, when you take the post, do the fill out. It's really an evaluation, not so much of a test, to find out where we are, where we're starting with everybody. So you'll fill out your pre-part before, and the post-evaluation, yes, ma'am, that would be it. Thank you very much. All right, to further our welcoming, we have the corporate treasurer from HEAL Collaborative, Mr. Howard Mosby. Come up and say a few words and welcome us here. He's got the mic. Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's almost still morning. Good morning. Thank you all for coming out today. I am Howard Mosby. Y'all know where Mosby Street is out here? And name that after me. Well. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you for doing this. This is really about bringing information to you. We're going to bring in front of you some trusted experts to talk about this issue. If you had to deal with this in your doctor's office, you'll get 15 minutes. You're going to have trusted experts in front of you that you can put your hands on and say, answer my question. Please lean in, ask your questions. This is about you getting this education, and we want to make sure that this information gets to you. We could not have done this without an awesome partner, Amgen Pharmaceuticals, multi-billion-dollar corporation, came to your community to bring you this information. So we want to say thank you to them. And we want to say thank you to this awesome group that's going to come in front of you. So with that, Dr. Tuckson, take this mic out of my hand.
I can't. And I did forget to introduce myself, Dr. Wayne Tuckson. By nature, I'm a colon and rectal surgeon, but I moderator to say, let me try. And I was not just trying to blow smoke up anybody's behind. Key part of the healthcare delivery system, and I want to thank you for all that you do. And so to try to get things going, I want to introduce the first speaker. Now, by the way, we're going to, and at the end of them speaking, we're in an answer session. So if you think of a question, try to remember it, and then we'll take your questions at the end. Our first speaker is is an associate professor and vice chair, Department of Medicine down at Morehouse School of Medicine. Chair in interventional pulmonary medicine for the Grady Hospital and Morehouse School of Medicine. More germane to today's program,
He is the director of the Advanced Diagnostic and Interventional Pulmonary Service and director of Lung Nodule Clinic at the Georgia Cancer Center for Excellence, also at Grady Hospital. Today, Dr. Flano is going to speak about cancer in Virginia, prevalence, screening, diagnosis, difference between non-small cell lung cancer and regular lung and small cell lung cancer and non-small cell lung cancer, the risk factors and staging. Dr. Flano, thank you.
Thank you. Do I need this? Yeah, I don't need this one, right? Okay. All right. And so that's a lot for me to talk about in a short period of time, but I always found it's really helpful for people to have an understanding of what exactly we're talking about. I believe that the only way we can get past some of these health disparities, these differences in how diseases affect different people and the bad outcomes on either side, is for you to have health education, right? Because if we're educated, we know what questions to ask for, we know what answers we should expect. So I want to talk a little bit about exactly what is lung cancer. And so, very basic, and some of you may know this, some of this may be new, but any cancer, whether it's prostate, whether it's colon, whether it's lung, whether it's breast, you start from a normal cell, and then something happens in its genes, and that cell changes. And then all of a sudden, it just starts dividing and dividing and dividing and growing out of control till you have a malignant cancer. It spreads other parts of the body. It steals nutrition, steals people's weight, steals their energy, and that's what's the bad part about it. So any cancer, specifically here, it's lung cancer we're going to talk about today. When we talk about lung cancer, you've heard from the fireside chat, some people said small cell, they had non-small cell. So something about us doctors, we're not really good about naming things, okay? But when you talk about the different types, small cell, well, the cells are smaller. And what we look at on small cell is each of these little blue dots, that's a cancer cell. That's small cell. And the smaller cells actually grow faster, they spread faster, and small cell has the highest link to smoking, okay? Now, the other one, you can see the cells are bigger. Every purple cell, that is a cancer cell, right? They're larger, they grow much slower. There's some other common causes, and I'll talk about those a little bit. There's more things related to it in terms of your environment, exposure, and stuff like that play a role. But because they're not so small, we call it non-small cell. So we weren't too good about that. But when we look at the different types of cancer causes, we know about 95% of the lung cancers that we see, come from smoking, okay? And so there's the other 5% that kind of runs, plays around, that they're related to other things. Number 2 in the United States is radon. Have you guys heard of radon before? Okay. For those that haven't heard of radon, it is a breakdown product of uranium in the soil. And we know uranium's radioactive, okay? So it comes up through the soil, it can get into houses, buildings, etc. It doesn't have a smell, it doesn't have a taste, it doesn't have a color. So you really don't know that it's there unless you get a test to detect it. So there are tests you can get, right? And what they found here in Virginia, of the people that test their houses, about 25%, 1 in 4 houses are positive. And it's radioactive, and it comes out of the soil. And who do you think lives in these neighborhoods where it comes positive? Thank you. Okay. Then there's asbestos, right? And you guys may have heard of asbestos. If you're watching TV late at night and you hear about, oh, if you have mesothelioma or asbestos exposure, and some lawyer is going to help you out, right? It's a nasty disease, also in the chest cavity. It's a cancer that grows around the lung and chokes it off pretty much. But what we do know is if you have mesothelioma, then you were probably exposed to asbestos. If you have been exposed to asbestos, you're more likely to develop lung cancer. So keep that in mind. And then pollution, waste dump areas, everything, factories, and who lives in these areas? Okay, and then just having lungs, right? About a good percent of the people, because remember that 5% of people who just have lungs develop lung cancer because of genetics. For veterans, any veterans here today? How many know a veteran? Okay. I know one too, right? And he also had lung cancer, as my father, right? So we have to be aware of this because with the veterans, 32% of them smoked, okay, because the cigarettes were free or they were very reduced. Even into retirement, they carried on. And if you were deployed overseas, there was about a 50% chance that they were smoking. And then they had exposures to other weapons, Agent Orange, burn pits, oil fires, etc. And this still goes on today. So thank those veterans for their service, but help them get the health care that they need. Okay. So why is lung cancer specifically bad for blacks? Okay, I talked to you a little bit about this, okay? And I'm going to go back through. To get these disparities down, we have to have an understanding. A lot of times when people talk about racial disparities in healthcare, we automatically think race and racism, okay? It's not only that. There are other factors which play a role. One is health, and the other is healthcare. I divided this up a long time ago. And when I talk about health, we have to talk about our biology, our bodies specifically, and then the environments and environmental exposures that we come to, whether it's smoking, whether it's the pollution, whether it's the asbestos, whether it is the radon. And then the other factor is health care, right? And this is health care that we seek and that we receive, whether it's early detection or the systemic factors or system factors within the healthcare system. Do they have the ability to screen? Do they have the ability to detect and get you through that healthcare process in a timely fashion, okay? But specifically in how this impacts blacks and what we know about lung cancer is we have the highest death rates from lung cancer, despite smoking about the same or even less than other groups, other races. Think about that for a second. We're less likely to receive screening. We're diagnosed at later stages because we're not getting the screening. And here's the thing, we're less likely to get any treatment at all. We're less likely to get any treatment at all for several factors. Okay, so here's what I'm going to show you. A lot of numbers here, but I'm going to make this really simple for you. This top row here is looking at the estimated new cancers we should see this year from all types, prostate, lung, colon, renal, men versus women. And let's take the men first. If you look at men, lung, we're probably going to see about 13,000, and this is specifically for African Americans, 13,000 new cases this year. It's number 2 to prostate, which has 3 times as much. Okay. Now here we're looking to see what's going to kill our African American men more. Okay. Number 1 is lung. If you were a betting person and you had 3 times as much, you say, well, prostate should be doing. No, it's lung, which tells you that it acts differently here. And for women, same thing. Lung, about 12,000, when breast is 36,000. That's 3 times more as much. Now, the numbers balance out a little bit more, right? And they're almost equal there, but that still tells you something. You had 3 times as much breast cancer, but lungs matching it here. So it affects, and when it attacks us in a different rate. Okay? And just to show you, when I told you about smoking, the difference between smoking about the same but having more lung cancer. So when we look in here, we're looking at the incidence, the rates of developing lung cancer per 100,000 people. Top African Americans at 74. Whites about 64, and Native Americans, Alaskans about 45. Okay? But when we compare it to the same amount of smoking, and here we have African American smoking rates, men, women, white, men, women, Native Americans, Alaskan, men, women, okay? You can look, the smoking rate for men, 23.5, 23.6 for white men, okay? But look, 10-point difference over here. Same for women, but still 10-point difference over here. Right? And if you really want to get this into your head that there's something different about how the bad effects of tobacco smoke affect us as a population, look at the Native Americans, right? They're smoking almost twice as much, but they're significantly less. So there's something about our genetics, something about us as a people that are more susceptible to the bad effects of tobacco smoke. Okay? And now, you guys are doing kind of okay. There's still a lot of smoking here. But you're right about, because the national average is about 13% for smoking here. Sorry, go back. And Virginia about 12%. So you're not down here at the lower end. There's a lot of smoking that comes around here. I was driving through the neighborhoods. I walked in the front door, there was a lot of smoking coming here. So this is important to realize when we realize that this smoking affects us differently and worse. And what I've learned working in my hospital, which is the 4th largest county hospital, about 95% of the patients I diagnose with lung cancer each year are African American. That it is not only do I have to ask how much you smoke, when you started smoking, what do I have to ask? What do you smoke? Right? And it makes a difference. And what's happened, what we've accepted as a culture, that what we smoke and the different ways we smoke, it's not that bad, right? But I just showed you numbers, it is that bad. So, cigarettes, about smoking, when we start talking about, you hear people talk about smoking, they start talking about the nicotine, right? And nicotine's not causing the cancer. It's 6,000 other chemicals that are released from the smoke that are causing the genetic change to develop cancer. The nicotine is what is addicting you to keep going back to it even though you know it's not good for you. And nicotine is so addictive. Only 2 things worse than that are cocaine and morphine. Okay? Right. So that's how addictive it is. And it's so regulated, if it were a new drug on the market today, the FDA would have a problem with it. So each cigarette is regulated, and it has about 8 milligrams of nicotine in it. So you can base off of that what you're being exposed to when you look at the other things, okay? So these small cigars, your Swisher Sweets, your Black and Milds, right, which ain't too mild, right? They have about 100 milligrams of nicotine in it, right? That's more than half a pack. I had a patient, he's young, 34, he had stage 4 small cell lung cancer, right? I asked him, what are you smoking? How much do you smoke? He said, I cut down, doc. I cut down a long time ago. I'm only smoking 4 a day. I said, 4 what? 4 Black and Milds. I said, you know you're a 2-pack a day smoker. Large cigars, because you heard about it earlier. Okay, I smoke a large cigar every now and then. It's kind of fun. We go out and whatever else. 200 milligrams of nicotine, right? 1.25 packs. I only smoke a couple of those a day. Okay, you're a 2.5-pack day smoker, right? That's the reality of this stuff, okay? And y'all go to hookah bars? I know nobody's going to raise their hand, right? Okay, one session more harmful than smoking a pack of cigarettes, right? And I honestly, I don't get it, right? You're in a room, it's filled with smoke that comes from somebody else's bad breath. You're passing this little thing around, it's been in somebody else's mouth. I don't even share straws for something to drink with people, let alone that. But you get a session for about an hour. You're inhaling, exhaling, blowing the stuff out. You get about 200 puffs per session. That is the same as 100 cigarettes, right? In one session, that's 5 packs of cigarettes. Okay, you say, okay, yeah, well, we do this once a week. Yeah, the reality of it is, it's that addiction to nicotine. It'll keep you going back. And when you're not doing that, but you want to get that hit, you just go out and buy some cigarettes. Right? And it's advertised. It's become popular, and it's becoming popular where? In our neighborhoods, right? And it's that type of popularity, that type of advertisement which comes and attacks us. And we can go through the years. These tobacco companies have known how to market and get us addicted over time. Now, some of these are before my time, but I think we hit the generations, and you'll see how the advertisements towards us come. These type of advertisements in the African American community are about 10 times more prevalent than they are in any other community. And what they're showing is healthy people looking, having a good time and doing whatever else. And when they ran out and they went to other things, right, then they went to vaping. And they made that actually advertise to our population. And then they continued, right? And you see it here. Right? Just relax, no smoking, just relax. No, you're not relaxed, you're getting cancer, okay? Right? Right? And it's across the board, even in Europe. And this is the thing. But pick your poison, because exactly how bad is vaping? Because you know, well, vaping doesn't cause cancer or it helps you quit. None of those are true. None of those are true, because you're still inhaling chemicals which are going to cause a problem. So we know that 1 pack of cigarettes is about 20 cigarettes, right? So let me count it up. Got it coming? There we go. So about 20 cigarettes. So now you know the Juul pods, right? Double yourself up. You hit about 41 cigarettes, the equivalent there. I know people will go through 2 or 3 of those pods a day. The Puff Bar, I'm not really happy with that because they put the menthol in them. And when you mentholate it, it becomes smoother and you don't get irritated and you're more likely to keep coming back to it, right? And now you're getting up to 50 cigarettes. And man, this one's the killer right here. And I know people will go through 2 or 3 pods of those a day, right? That's the equivalent of 90 cigarettes, right? So you have to think about these things that we're using. They do have the bad side effects. So we talk about marijuana, right? And in the past, marijuana doesn't cause cancer. Well, now we know it does, right? In the early days, we couldn't, okay? And it's a risk. You know that if you are a heavy marijuana user in this study, if you were a heavy marijuana user in your lifetime, you had a 2-fold risk of developing lung cancer in your lifetime, right? So what's a heavy user? You raise your hand. Yeah, about more than 50 times in a lifetime. Not a week, because I know there's some people can barely get through the week without hitting it 50 times, right? And then there's other factors. How big are you rolling it? Who are you doing it with, right? All of these play a role. It is. Some of y'all looking guilty in here. Okay. So why get screened, right? Because we talk about screening. The goal for screening is to catch cancer, especially lung cancer, before you have symptoms. Because we know, and you all know your bodies, right? I'm going to tell you why this is important in just a second. But by the time you have a cough, by the time you're short of breath, by the time you are coughing up blood, you're losing weight, or you keep going to the doctor and they say you have a pneumonia and they treat you for it, and you come back and the pneumonia's in the same place and it got bigger and they treat you again. By the time all that stuff happens, you are at a late stage of cancer where it's going to be too late to reach a cure, right? About 75% of the people who have the symptoms are too late to get a cure, okay? So if you recognize symptoms of something different, it's time to go get checked out, okay? But when we talk about screening, what we are trying to do with screening is find the cancer, this little spot over here, that's not going to show, this little spot down here, before it has symptoms. So I'm going to give you an anatomy class here real quick. So this is your CAT scan, this is your heart, this gray stuff in your lungs over here, right? Normal lungs should look like this. That's the spot that they're looking for. The reason it is important in finding it that way, because this will grow. There's not very many nerves out here. So this will grow undetected. If it touches the edge of the lung, you've seen somebody who's had a rib fracture or hurt their ribs, it's painful because the edge of the lung has a lot of nerves. You've seen something in your airways, you have a cough, you know something's there, right? But this can grow undetected. If we find it early by getting a CAT scan once a year, you'll hear about that you have a 20% chance. If you get that over the x-ray, 20% better chance of not dying of lung cancer. If you just go to the screening, you'll have a 25% chance of not dying of lung cancer if you're a high-risk person for it. So I want you to remember this because this is important. Who should get screened? Who should get screened? Well, sorry, everybody in this room, you guys are pointing at each other. All right. If you're between the ages of 50, this is the criteria. It has changed a couple of times. I think the more African Americans get screened, the more it's going to change because not one size fits all. You just need to be careful and get it done. If you're between the ages of 50 and 80, okay, if you smoked any time within the past 15 years, and this is going to be updated, but any time within the past 15 years, you're a candidate. The other thing is you have to have that 20. I mean, I talk about all these packs, right? you have to have at least a 20-pack year history. So what we mean by that is if you smoke 1 pack a day for 20 years, you have a 20-pack history. If you smoke 2 packs a day for 10 years, you have a 20-pack history. If you're at 20 or above, you need to be asking about getting screened. If you're not that person, but you know somebody else that has, you need to ask them about getting screened. Don't blame them. Don't shame them, because getting screened can save lives. It can save our lives. Okay, so screening for lung cancer, you guys are not that bad in terms of those patients who have been recognized to be high risk and are actually getting screened. And you're somewhere close to the, this is the incidence, sorry. This is actual incidence from standpoint. You guys are at 7% of the people who are at high risk for developing lung cancer. The national average, or getting screened, the national average is about 5. So you guys are doing a good job here in Virginia. You just need to push it a little bit harder so that our people are getting screened, because the actual cancer rate here is about national average. So you guys are doing better than the rest of the country. And it's important to find it early. The reason it's important to find it early is because it can improve your survival. And so here's what we're looking at here. We're looking at when somebody was diagnosed with lung cancer. What stage were they? Were they at the early stage? Were they treatable? Were they at the regional stage where they still can get treatment and benefit, or were this too far distant stage? Okay, so this is, you have one spot, easy to treat, spot where you might have some lymph nodes, and distance where it's spread all over. So if we take whites who are in the blue and African Americans who are in the red, you're going to see that we are less likely to have it found early. In the mid stages, we're about equal. But when it comes to the late stages, the stages where it's going to be harder to reach a cure, we're less likely to have it at an earlier stage and more likely to have it at a distant stage. Okay? And that really impacts. And specifically for Virginia, specifically here, if we take dark blue being whites and the light blue being blacks, you are less likely to have it diagnosed early. Okay? Less likely to get surgery, to take that one spot that can be cured and get it out and you're cured from it, less likely. You're about 5 points less likely to get cured. And then not to receive any treatment at all, you're less likely, African Americans are less likely to receive any treatment here. So we've got to get educated to know about what we need to demand from our healthcare system to be able to get to that point where we can get treatment. Okay, give you an understanding. So we're going to switch gears. I got a lot to give you guys about lung cancer in a short period of time. So the reason that finding it early is important, and then moving on it quickly. That once you get that diagnosis, you say, I don't believe this, I'm going to go somewhere else. I don't believe this, I'm going to go somewhere else. And you start delaying it. Well, when we start looking at how important it is to move quickly, because we have what we call a doubling time. And basically it is how long it takes from this one cancer cell to multiply to go to 2 cancer cells. And then from there to go to 4. Right? Think of it differently. If they tell you your cancer is the size of a teaspoon, okay, how long does it take to go from 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons, and 2 teaspoons to 4, and then 4 to half a cup? Right? That's what we're trying to get measured there. So that's what we call a doubling time, how long it takes to double. So the first one you heard about, non-small cell, the bigger one. That doubling time there is about 2 to 3 months. Right? So delaying and say, oh, I don't like what this doctor told me. I'm going to go to another doctor, and I got to get an appointment in 2 weeks, and I get another scan, and then maybe we can start treatment or not. You're giving it time to double in size. Okay? The thing about this for non-small cell, and you heard about it, best treatment there if it's localized. If you catch it, and you heard our survivors say this, if you catch it when it's one spot, they can take that area out. Surgery is best treatment when it's at that one spot. Okay? If surgery is not an option, then there's chemotherapy and radiation which comes about. Okay. The thing about for Virginia, and we look at people who have had curative surgery for lung cancer, you're somewhere down here in the middle of the rest of the nation. We can do better here. Okay. So, but that's Virginia as a whole, but when we come back, remember I said, when you take that number as a whole, you're not doing that bad. When you take it specifically for African Americans, you're going to see that this number here, this less likely cure, is significantly less on that graphically see. Okay. And for this, and if you think about, hold on, let me stand up here. Women, who's less likely to go to doctors? Men. So wait, they did the study and they looked at men, right? Or they looked at across the board, all men, women, blacks, and whites, and made the comparison of those who had early stage, who could get curative surgery, and who was getting it and how often. White men, 90-something%, white women, 90-something%, black women, 90-something%, black men, 65%. Guys, we got to step it up. Okay? Now, let's talk about the bad one, right? Because you've heard already, small cell, it's more aggressive, it spreads faster, it's harder to treat. That doubling time is 30 days, 1 month, right? 4 weeks. When I diagnose somebody with small cell lung cancer, we are on a move to push them through the system to get everything done so they can start getting treatment. Okay? But even with that, or we have to stage them too, right? Because staging is the most important part of this, right? And we're trying to find out, is this small cell lung cancer, is it in one area, which is a limited stage, or has it spread to other areas, right? Where you see everything that's bright and orange, yellow, there, that's where it's spread. Has it gone to the extensive stage? Because treatment's very dependent upon that. And your survival and how long you survive is very dependent upon that. Okay? So, small cell is the most aggressive, right? Only about 5 to 10% of people diagnosed with it are going to live for 5 years. Okay? If you have the extensive stage, and even if you get treatment, you're only going to live about 6 to 12 months, right? That's why that's when people are told they have small cell lung cancer. It's such a devastating thing. That means it's more important to get things moving and start looking for treatment. And even with treatment, if you're only about 10% of them reach cure in 2 years. 10%, 1 out of 10 diagnosed in 2 years are going to reach cure. Now, there is hope. There's newer treatments. Tarlatamab is one of them. You're going to hear about that later, right? Where you start trying to teach your immune system how to help fight the lung cancer from that standpoint. But what it involves, and a lot of these new things involve, is us participating in clinical trials, okay? So I know there's some bad history about being in studies and trials, okay? I can tell you what came out of those bad histories is recognition and improvements in how they're done so that it doesn't feel like people are being guinea pigs, that they're going to be experimented on. This is actually, these new treatments help understanding about disease and response to treatment, especially in African Americans, okay? And they're tightly regulated. If you get in a clinical trial now, you are either receiving a new drug, which has already been tested for safety, or the standard treatment, and they're trying to compare what's better. So the benefits for us to do that is you might get new treatment, and if you are underinsured, have a little bit hard. A lot of times these are trials or cover your payment for treatment, so you have an opportunity to receive some treatment, and it helps us understand about black people, okay? Could extend your life, because the problem we have is about 83% of the studies for cancer are done on whites. Only about 6% on African Americans. So when they come up with a recommendation on treatments that are going to work, it's not geared to us because we haven't participated. Okay, yeah, so take home points here. One, and I see all the little kids coming through, and I have to say this because we are in a middle school right here. This is a study in 2022 looking at middle school students who were using any type of tobacco products and the types they were using, okay? Tobacco, and overall, about 5% girls, 3% boys. Used to be the other way around, but now we look at this. Here's the thing. Once they start in middle school, these companies market to them. You see the candy-flavored vapes and whatever else, they don't stop, right? And that we cannot tell our kids not to do something if we do it ourselves, right? It doesn't work. Remember your smoking and your screening criteria. This is important, okay? If you know somebody, encourage them. If it's you, go get screened, okay? And remember, clinical trials can save your life. All right, with that, I think I've talked long enough.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Flanneau. I
Sure.
think you heard Dr. Flanneau mention something at the end there about clinical trials.
We also heard Reverend McDonald, when he was talking during the fireside chat, also talked about clinical trials. The idea is, where do new medications come and how do they come about? It's a very interesting process. And fortunately, we have somebody today with us who's going to explain that to us. Dr. Doe is a graduate of the University of Minnesota, where she did her undergraduate work in physiology. Subsequently, she went on to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin, where she got her doctorate of pharmacy degree. And currently, she is the Associate Medical Scientific Director of Early Development at Amgen, where, among other things, which is very important for this particular discussion, she monitors ongoing oncology trials and the design of new clinical studies to ensure both the safety and efficacy of these studies. Dr. Doe is going to speak to us about understanding how new drug treatments are brought to market. She doesn't have as big a mouth as me or Eric, so try to keep the noise down a little bit. Dr. Doe.
It's a pleasure to be here today. So I'll be quick. I'm just going to explain real quick about how we bring new drugs or new modality, new chemical, from being just a chemical into a market as a new drug. So what do we study? What clinical trial do we run? Just stand over this way. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, so we're going to do a quick overview of the drug development process, how we analyze data for clinical trial, what do we consider when we're comparing different clinical trial, and then how we enroll in clinical trial, and then what does Amgen do right now for clinical trial in small cell lung cancer or non-small cell lung cancer. So this process can be broken down to 5 steps. So step number 1, discovery and development. So this is when you're scientists looking for a new drug, new modality, and they're seeing which one works, which one doesn't work in the lab, right? So then you have step number 2, which is preclinical research. This is where you test those chemical or those drug modality on animal to see, okay, if it's safe on animal, what is their reaction to it before we hit what's called a clinical research, which is when we're testing human. So in clinical research, the key here is to test the safety and efficacy of a new drug. You see me use those terms over and over and over again. We have different phases in clinical trials to see if the drug works and if it's safe. And then number 4 is FDA review. So FDA will see the entire package that a pharmaceutical company will submit to them, all the data from discovery, development, preclinical research, clinical research. They review all of it to ensure that it's safe and it's efficacious for the patient population. And then after if the drug get approved, we'll also do what's called a post-market monitoring, where we continue to monitor for safety and efficacy of the drug throughout its life cycle, so its entirety. So, all right, so as you can see here, the average from drug discovery, about 10,000 molecule or 10,000 different chemical, give you about 1 drug approval. So the process is very lengthy. It takes about 7.5 years, and it costs roughly $648 million, up to about $2 billion to get 1 drug approved. Yeah, very expensive and very long. So from May 1st, 2016 to May 31st, 2021, there were about 207 different FDA cancer approvals for different cancer drugs. Now that may seem a lot, but think of how many type of cancer we have and different level of it, different severity, right? And this is a span of 5 years, only really about 207 drugs that were approved. The reason why it costs so much and takes so long is because of the extensive research that we have to do, and then different regulatory process that are needed for these drugs to be approved. Okay. I'll go into quick detail about the 5 steps that I was mentioning earlier. So step 1 and 2. So at Amgen, we really focus on basically a biology-first approach. What that means is we look into the science to see trying to understand the disease state. And then we'll find a target that will hit this disease state and work on it. And then what we do next is preclinical research, where we'll do a lab test, animal test to see the potential of side effect, to see if it is safe to do a first-in-human study. All right. So step 3, this is important. This is when I come into play, where we have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Phase 4 is something that is after FDA approved, so I'll talk about it a little bit later. So phase 1 is what I'm a medical director monitoring for phase 1 safety. So what we do here, we test in a small group of subjects to see if it's safe and to see the right dosage for this small group. This takes about several months to 3 years. So my clinical trial right now takes about 3 years, the one I'm running in small cell lung cancer. Then you hit phase 2. Now we have all the data on phase 1. We're going to go ahead to the phase 2, which is to test effectiveness and side effects. Again, all the safety related to that drug. At this phase, we test on a larger group of subjects to see if it works in this disease state, in this group of patients. And then phase 3, what do? We do the same thing in the larger group of patients, just to really confirm now that you have a larger group, the effectiveness and the safety of the medication in a really large group of people. So this can go from 1 year to roughly 4 years or longer. And then after the FDA deem if this drug is safe for approval, they approved it, and then we continue to monitor it, like I said earlier. So that seemed very lengthy. It's take forever to get a drug approved. But FDA does have approach to make sure that this process can be quicker to get the drug to the patient faster, right? So there's 4 different steps they could take. Number 1 is a fast track. This is really a faster approval, so faster reviews. FDA will allocate more resources to review this package, this ginormous package that pharma sent to them, to see, if we could review this faster, because this is a serious condition for unmet medical need. Number 2 is what's called a breakthrough therapy. A therapy has to be proven that it's substantially better than everything else in the market by a lot for them to be like, okay, we're going to allocate resources to get this out faster so people can receive this faster instead of whatever is available right now that's not as good. Number 3 is what's called an accelerated approval. So this is also, again, for serious condition, unmet need, and sometimes they give an accelerated approval and then they tell us, we need another trial to confirm. So you need to continue to do research on this to confirm that this is good. And then priority review. So a priority review, basically, they can review a drug application in 6 months instead of 10. So it cuts out 4 months, which is good. And then I'm going to skip this slide. Doesn't want me to skip. Oh. Okay, so how are the data is analyzed at the FDA? So they have a rigorous process to analyze their data. They have physicians, statisticians, chemists, pharmacologists. They have other scientists to review this huge packet from pharma, right? And so they want to look at every single detail of the result to see if the drug is safe and efficacious. They also check on side effects and how the drug compared to existing treatment. Now, if there's existing treatment, this new drug has to be equal or better for them to even consider approving it. Sometimes they consult additional expert, and then the additional expert is called advisory committee. So now these are scientists, doctors from outside the FDA to review the data. And they also may sometimes ask patient representative too, like, would this drug work in the patient? So this advisory committee will hold meeting. They'll also review the package. They also look at the FDA and their reviewer and what they're getting out of it, and then they'll discuss, and they think if this drug should be approved by the FDA or not. After that, they will vote. The whole committee will say whether they think that they should approve or not. Now, this is a recommendation. The FDA can still accept the recommendation or reject the recommendation. Usually, when they consult their additional expert, they trust them. But sometimes they're like, this is not enough. And at any point in this process at all, the FDA can come back and ask for more data and additional trial. So when it comes to their decision making, you know, there's two ways it could go. They could approve it or they could deny it. They could approve it, then the drug is available for the market. They could easily just reject it because due to safety, efficacy, or they don't think it should be in the market because there's something else exists that is just as good. So they could deny it. However, there's a third option that is called a conditional approval, where they can conditionally approve it and ask for further data. Again, that is something they can do through the entire process. It doesn't have to wait to the end. So now you're getting a lot of information about clinical trials. So how do you compare clinical trial? I would like to just, I know this is a busy slide, but I'd just like to be cautious because it's even hard for me to read on all these clinical trials, understand the study design, the different disease severity. And so if you would like an expert to consult on, I would talk to your doctor, bring out the clinical trial to them and say, I have these, and then I would like to ask. Okay, so risk and benefit. So there's risk and benefit in everything. There's benefit in joining a trial, and there's risk in joining a trial. So what are they? So for the benefit for joining the trial is that you can help advance the research for people with the same condition as you. You could get the treatment that is not available right now. You can also increase the number of options you have for treatment. You'll feel more active, like you're taking a really active look into your health. You get to work with your care team all the time. When you're in a clinical trial, you visit your doctor very frequently, so they can monitor your disease a lot more often than a normal patient would. And then some study sponsor may pay for part of your current treatment and other expenses during the trial, you know, like time, travel. Now, that's also a risk, right? If you're going to clinical trial, it could be cumbersome. You could spend a lot of time traveling, a lot of time visiting the doctor. You know, some people might not want that. So that would take a lot of time for you. And the new treatment may not work. It may have new side effects. And it's something we lay out very detailed in what called an informed consent form. So we want our subject to be volunteer. They want to be in the trial. They understand all the risks associated with it, and we'll lay it out from the beginning. And then when you take part in what's called a randomized clinical trial, you don't get to pick what treatment you're on. You could be on this new drug. You could be on the standard of care, which is the current treatment that you would have received if you were not on the clinical trial. But you won't get to pick. Sometimes you don't get to pick. So the randomized clinical trial, you don't get to pick. And then, you know, sometimes insurance doesn't cover all the costs with it. And that's where, you know, some pharma company come into play and they'll cover that cost that insurance wouldn't cover. So how can you participate, right? So there's, you know, we Google everything. Now, I Google everything. But you can go to the FDA website. They have clearly laid out all the plan for what is a clinical trial, what patient need to know. And the NIH website, clinicaltrial.gov, will list out all the clinical trial in current disease state. So if you go search small cell lung cancer, you see the list of clinical trial that's currently recruiting or recruited, or they're done, or they're going to recruit. And if you're interested in them, talk to your doctor, bring it to them. These are the lists. What do you think? Am I eligible for it? And they'll be able to talk to you about it. So with Amgen, we currently have a long list of our clinical trial that we're running for small cell lung cancer. And the two that I want to talk to you about today, I think the graphic is a little messed up on this, but Delphi 305 and Delphi 306 are the two that we'll be available to talk to you in the back. We have Dr. Bergman from VCU, who is going to be a primary investigator on these trials. So if you know someone that might be interested in participating, if you just want to learn more, we'll be available in the back to talk later. Any question? Any question? Okay. Oh, yeah, you want it?
And Ms. Thomas, why don't you come up? I've not had a chance to introduce Ms. Thomas to you yet. Ms. Daly Thomas is a nurse practitioner. She got her nursing degree from Clayton State School of Nursing, and then she subsequently got her nurse practitioner's degree at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. She is the lung cancer screening coordinator at the Georgia Cancer Center, which is located there at Grady Hospital. So I'm going to start off with Ms. Thomas if you would tell us a little bit, two things I want to ask you about. Number one, Dr. Flano told us about this screening that can be done for lung cancer. So I want you to tell me, how does somebody get into that? And the second thing is, you're also a nurse navigator. Now, we'll have a bunch of community health workers here. What does a nurse navigator do that someone may be different and or complementary to what they do?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. So grateful you guys came out to listen to us. So I just want to give some background. So the first thing when you want to get a screening done, you have to go to either your primary care provider, or if you go to a lung specialist, you have to have a visit with them. I encourage you to have that partnership, not just to talk about the screening, but you want to trust that person. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with them because you need to discuss different things going on. And if you do go for a screening, you will need to see them after to follow up. So it's not just a one and done. Okay, so when you go to that visit, they'll talk to you, go over your history. Are you in the age range, 50 to 80? How long have you been smoking? Where have you been smoking? All that's going to be documented. If you quit smoking, how long ago did you quit smoking? All that they want to know. Then they want to know about your family. Did you have a family member that had cancer? Different types of cancers. You know, what kind of work do you do? All these questions you want to be open with the doctor about, because they're in their mind, they're processing. Are you at risk for developing lung cancer? Okay? So they put the order in. They're like, what happens now? Majority of the time, somebody reaches out to you, or they give you a number to call to schedule your CAT scan or CT scan. So when you go to that visit, most of the time they tell you don't eat or drink anything about 2 hours before, tell you don't wear jewelry, you know, all that bling, please leave it at the house, because they're going to have you take it off because it's going to be obstructing the view. Tell people don't wear anything with not a lot of buttons, just because they'll show up in the scan. So when they pull you up, they give you a little armband, put you on a little table. So people are always scared. Is it the tube? So it's not the MRI, because people always get scared. They're going to be closed in. They're claustrophobic. They say, I need meds for the scan. It is not a tube, okay? You're going to be in a little ring. So it's still open. You're not closed in. And you're going to be laying on the table for just a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. They'll talk to you through your hair a little. The technician will tell you take deep breath in, tell you blow it out. If they don't get the images, they'll just repeat it to you, okay? You missed something, don't worry, they'll tell you. They're not letting you leave until they get what they need, so that's the good thing. But the process in itself, about 20-30 minutes of your day, okay? So you go home, you're like, what happens now? So I encourage people to have my chart, you know, it's readily available to push to get your results right away. I love it, but I don't love it too, because we love to consult Dr. Google before your doctor calls you, okay? Because you're going to get those results. And the thing about being a lung screening coordinator, I get all your results. So if 10 of you go get a scan, the same day I'm getting those 10 results in. So I know your results as well. Those results go to your doctor, and they go to you as well, okay? So the normal scans, you get a letter in the mail, you'll get those results to your phone that is normal, okay? If it's abnormal, your doctor will reach out. So please, before your doctor reach out, do not consult Google, because you'll be confused, it causes more chaos. You already think 10 different things that maybe none of them are true, okay? And once your doctor reaches out, I reach out as well. Because what we want to do is make sure you're connected with the resources that you need. Maybe another doctor. We have a lung nodule clinic at Grady. So if there's an abnormal scan, more than likely you're coming to see myself and Dr. Flano. Okay? So that's the screening portion. So the navigation, once they come to our clinic, what happens? We go over all your history again. They get, you know, patients like, I just talked to somebody about that. But a lot of times, as you get comfortable, start talking, you may have thought of something that you didn't think was relevant, but it may be relevant for your risk factors, different things. And then we get you connected. You may need a biopsy. I fill out majority of our biopsies may need another scan. Maybe this is something that's infectious. Maybe this is something we don't know. Might need another scan, specialized PET scans, like Ms. Colette mentioned. And then once you get a diagnosis, it's not just okay, you have cancer, and that's it. My job is to make sure that you're connected with what you need. I have my squad ready to take care of you. I just need to let you know what the next steps will be. You know, I always tell patients we do have to diagnose about 100 plus patients to our clinic. And that's not counting the patients that he does inpatient. So it's a lot of patients that we're telling that they have cancer, and majority of them are Black. Okay?
Yeah. Well, before you go, you describe what's going on down at Grady. I'm going to assume that the same kind of thing is happening up here at VCU, Oldman, well, maybe not, or somewhere else, at other hospitals. But how does one get hooked into that? Are you aware of any networking? One with how you get tied into that sort of thing?
Yeah, so the biggest thing when you have your screening, you want to stay connected with them because they will call you back. Because a lot of people, they call it, why do I need to come back? Because you want to connect with them. If you have normal scan, they need to connect you to next steps. So you don't just want, I know, I get it. Majority of patients, this time off work, I got other things to do. And if you had a screening done, you don't have symptoms. So I think that's the biggest thing there. You know, navigators are reaching out and you're like, well, why should I take off another day at work? But that's the biggest thing. We want to treat it. Yeah.
Let me ask them. Just jump in and had a question, then I'll come to you next. I promise. She was first. Go ahead. I will make sure.
I was going to ask her with FDA. My doctor gave me a medication that was not FDA approved. I panicked instantly once I found out. So how do a doctor get the right to a prescription that's not FDA approved?
If I could add to maybe explain a little bit. So if the Federal Food and Drug Administration has not approved a medication, how does that happen? And can doctors really write a medication that's not FDA approved?
It's likely that it's not approved for that specific indication. So now doctors very well versed in the science, they know, okay, if it worked for this indication, likely work for other indications, a different type of disease. Now sometimes the pharmaceutical company don't study that particular indication, so not disease, but they already study something else. So sometimes it's called what's called off-label use. So it's likely the case, I can't speak to what actually happened, but likely the case they give an FDA-approved drug to you. However, it wasn't approved to that specific indication, approved for a different indication, so different disease. But it's likely to work interchangeably.
Dr. Flanell, so if a medication is approved for a particular treatment, so I think the biggest example all of us have seen now is like Ozempic.
Yeah.
Everybody hear about that? Originally for diabetes, but all of a sudden we found out that it works for weight loss. So if a drug is approved for one condition and the physician writes it for another, is it going to be covered by their health insurance?
Yeah. Does it?
It just depends.
It's variable. And what before you just go right through and accept all of that, if that's a big concern for you, you need to ask him at that point. A lot of times you'll take that prescription and you will step out the door, and when you get to the pharmacy and they say it's $400, you're angry at the doctor or whatever. Ask before you go. It's variable. Sometimes we can get around things, like I can use an antibiotic that may work on something here and you have something here. That you can sometimes do. But you need to really make sure, when you get that prescription, you say, is this going to be covered, or am I going to be forking out some dollars?
Right.
So a question right here. Go ahead.
My question is, how do you detect that you got lung cancer? Do you eat or?
So a lot of the symptoms, like showed on one of the slides, are cough, right? So you're coughing up blood, you're losing weight. Those are signs that telling you need to go get checked out. Right, because something's happening in your body. A lot of time, the screening is important. We want to find it when we want to look for it for those people who are at risk. We do get a percentage that are incidental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we also get those patients that you may have been sent to the doctor for something else. Your stomach was hurting, and they do a scan. They caught the bottom of your chest, and they're like, hey, you have a nodule here, and you're like, well, I don't have any symptoms. So those patients still need to see us, because what we don't want to happen is, what if that was a cancer and we just kind of let it go? Well, you didn't go for a screening, but majority of times, if we see something on scan, we do need to follow up with either that doctor or have them refer you to somebody else.
Yeah, we're a trauma center, and sometimes people get a car accident, and they'll get a full scan, and they'll see something. And I've never, first time I ever heard people say, I'm glad I got in that car accident because they found us. Right? But you know, God works in mysterious ways.
Well, to that same degree, if the person is under the age of 50 and they're concerned about their risk for cancer, let's say they have somebody in their family who's had, as we heard earlier, and even with when Pena was talking, someone else in the family has the cancer, can they go about the process of getting screening done, or do they have to wait to 50? Say they live in a high-risk area.
So all of these risk factors have to be discussed with your primary care doctor about getting the screening. There are some limitations on how many people you can screen that are outside of the guidelines. You know better.
Yeah. So a lot of times, number one, insurance will not cover it. Majority of the insurance, now it's even harder for us to get the insurance to pay for it. It's going to take a lot of documentation if you're outside of the screening criteria, but as an institute, most will not screen outside those guidelines because now we are under scrutiny because we're supposed to stick with what they know through the study that those patients are at risk for developing cancers.
We have a question over here, please, ma'am.
Okay, the thing we're saying about the approved or the pool, you said make sure you take the doctor, you see if the medicine approved at the pharmacy. Okay, you get to the pharmacy and the medicine still ain't approved. Then you have to wait a certain amount of time to get the medicine approved. But by then, you been got worse. So what can you do?
So at our facility, you want to make sure you have the social worker's number. I tell patients at that first visit, I tell them bring a notebook because you're going to meet a lot of people when you get diagnosed, right? Key people, you want to always have their card, your nurse navigator and the social worker. Because they know everybody else that you may need to get in contact with, including the pharmacist coordinator. Because they typically, because there's so many different drugs, there are people that work in the pharmacy just to work on getting those authorizations. So the social worker would be a great person to be in contact with, like, hey, I went to the pharmacy, they're saying it's $2,000. What can I do? So the social worker will get you in contact who you need to, and if it means having another discussion with your doctor, they'll get you set up to come back in. Okay? So that's the numbers I tell you. Keep that social worker and nurse navigator.
I want to hear another opinion on who else might be involved. You seem like someone who might have some information about somebody else who. What is the role then of the community health worker in this whole process which we were just talking about?
So the role of the community health worker would be to educate the patient on the things that are going on. You also are going to advocate for your clients. So if a medicine isn't approved, there's certain systems with the Medicaid or MCOs that you can go through as far as the appeal process to get those medications paid for. So your community health worker is another person you can reach out to help you with it.
Okay.
I thought you might have an opinion on that. We got a question over here, please.
Oh, how y'all doing? Don't shame me. Not shame me or blame me for asking this question. Now, we talking about screening. And it brought up back to my mom, because my mom died of breast cancer. Now, much as this lady went to the doctor, anything, she ain't missed a mammogram or nothing. They caught her cancer in 4th stage. And today, I'm checking into that because I'm uneasy with it. It don't sit well with me. How they miss 1st, second and third stage cancer, and they caught it at fourth and want nothing else they can do for it but make them comfortable. And that just brought up some feelings sitting in here, listening to you all. I appreciate it because I done learned a lot now. I'm scared because I smoke and I keep having saliva come up and back and forth. And I've been to the doctor and had several tests myself, and they keep telling me ain't nothing wrong with them. So I already done text my chart, made me an appointment. That's why I asked the young lady back there, what did you say about the scan, a PET scan, PET, and the other name with the N stuff you said you had, because you don't have to be a smoker to have lung cancer. I've learned a lot, thank you. But yeah, can you answer me?
Go down. I'm not, a lot of times people ask us questions when they come in and they say, okay, we went through this and this, but I don't know the details of how it happened and how things developed, and I'm not covering up for anybody. So, but what you have through the collaboration, through the Kill Collaborative, through Amgen, of us coming out into the community, like what I was saying earlier, the biggest thing we can do is give you health equity by giving you health literacy and education. Because our goal, and that really makes us feel good, because just what you said there makes it like we're telling you something that you can use, that you can apply to yourself, to your loved ones, to go back and make a change and take control of not just your health right now, but what your health is going to be later, and what the other people around you, whether they're more advanced than you or if they're coming up and they're children, and you need to ask these questions about their health or tell them what they should be doing and not be doing and demonstrate it. That's the importance of what we do. So exactly, I'm so glad that that message got across.
Would you all also address it? That's another thing though. Even though sometimes we do exactly the right thing and we go on treatment program, not everybody's going to respond to medication, and there are also different growth patterns. So I want you to go back through different cancer, how all cancer, even though we use the word cancer, we use the word non-small cell lung cancer, that still covers the myriad of things. But Dr. No, tell us, even though you come up with a great drug, one of the reasons why you got so many different drugs out there because they all don't work the same on everybody. Is that where trials help us out?
Right.
Yeah, so this is what is important to talk about to the community about this, right? So Dr. Flynn was presenting earlier. We don't have enough representation for African American compared to Caucasian American who are participating in trial way more often. Now we found a drug that will work, and it worked on the Caucasian American, but may not work on the African American population, right? So that's why it's important that we're aware of what clinical trial is, we participate in it if there God forbid a condition we have that we can be eligible to participate in. Now we're representing not just getting a new therapy and helping ourselves, but also our future generation. We have representation in these clinical trials because we want to make sure that the result that we submit to the FDA is encompassed of everybody, that it is safe and efficacious on everybody despite the race, despite their gender, their age, and their socioeconomic status.
Some cancers grow fast, some cancers grow slow.
Yes.
You know those weeks. Can you tell by looking at it?
I cannot tell by looking at it. I know that the trend is that small cell is the worst one, but we can't tell because we don't know all of the factors. Some people, you say they found it at one point in time, and then shortly it was kind of everywhere. I can tell you one thing though, and I gotta get this myth dispelled. Because when you look at African American, especially the men, and I told you the men are not getting the surgeries, there is this misconception that if you have surgery and the air hits the cancer, it's going to spread. That's not real. Right? Because it's not real. Think about it. There's a whole lot of air in the lung. Right? What's happening is we didn't used to have as good of CAT scanners as we had, so they do the surgery and they look, oh, it's already spread. But it got misinterpreted, and once they open them up and the air hit it, it spread. It is not real. So if you have an opportunity to get curative treatment, it's good. We don't know how fast some are gonna spread or not spread. So that's when I said we have that time clock to go. When we get somebody diagnosed, Dana's pushing them through. You need to talk to this, you need to get this scan, you need to get to whatever else. And when you come back for the results and you're not sure you're gonna hear everything, bring somebody with you.
Please do.
Yeah, because a lot of times we tell them, and every time we have cancer, they don't hear nothing else we say.
All right, we got a question over here, please. Go ahead.
I got, my name is David. I'm a lung cancer survivor. I had lung cancer. Because I started my lungs off. But the question is that you talk about like smallpox. I seriously smallpox. Do they operate right in there?
Small cell?
Yeah.
Small cell.
Yes. So you're a survivor already?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you still going through your follow-up? Yeah.
Well, I've been over 9 years now.
You will know, as a survivor. Yes. The survivors know it is a day-to-day thing. That you're a survivor, cure means you're still going for the follow-up and still being looked for whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Good.
I'll be back to you in a minute. Back to you in a minute. All right, David, I asked something though. You talked about therapies and stuff. You know, some of you talk about 65% of African American males don't show up or we're doing very badly. One of the things we all hear, you said the lung air may cause cancer spread, yeah, it doesn't. But chemotherapy is poison. I'm going to get sicker taking the chemotherapy than I feel right now. So if I come in here and I get a screening test done, I'm asymptomatic. Right. But all of a sudden you come in here and give me these drugs and I feel sick.
That's right. Of what
Talk about that.
I know. I wouldn't want to go through that. The majority of the time when we're scheduling appointments, we're scheduling them to see the surgeon, the medical oncologist, the radiation doctor. So a lot of times they already have their, patients have their beliefs based on, my aunt had radiation, she didn't do well. Somebody had surgery, they didn't do well. They got chemo, was sick, it was killing them. But, we know the fact of the matter is, chemo, the part of it, they have to kill cells because these are cells that we want to kill. So I can't say that you won't have any side effects. You will. They tell you the long list of possible side effects, but we never know how your body's going to respond. And I tell them, just because you start a treatment does not mean that we're just going to stick, you're miserable, you don't want to do it anymore. They're not going to just stick you with a treatment and say, no, after that, regardless of how you feel, you have to stay with that treatment. That's why, it's important that you have a voice. This is your body, okay? The doctors are going to tell you what their recommendations are. But it's up to you. Be vocal. If something's going on, you need to tell them. They will not know what symptoms you're having. If your mouth hurts, you don't know you're having tooth pain, they won't know until you tell them what's going on.
So on the other side of that, so we now had the standard type of chemotherapeutic drugs that we used to use, where you had a medication which was killing abnormal cells, but also sometimes normal cells. Now we come along to this new class of drugs of monoclonal antibodies. So Dr. Doe, without talking necessarily about Amgen alone, if you wish, but tell me, what is a monoclonal antibody and how do these types of drugs work different than the standard chemotherapy we are all so familiar with?
Yeah, so the reason that chemo causes some side effects is it just go out and do the killing, right? But for these antibodies, they're very specific. They find the cancer, they grab onto them, and the other arm of it either have a drug that would say, hey, go get the cancer cell, or bind to your own immune system, your T cell, and will bring it to the cancer cell and therefore killing it directly. So now it's very targeted, there are less side effects, and the whole point of innovative medicine for most of, these pharma companies really is to find ways to get target therapy to reduce side effects, even sometimes to upgrade the standard of care. Now, standard of care for lung cancer is really chemotherapy. We're working on trying to find therapy so that, maybe one day we'll have something so specific and so good that there's less side effects and work better than chemotherapy. But chemotherapy does work really well.
Yeah. And I I'll get this question.
Go back to the question. Go ahead, man.
I have a question. My dad had liver cancer, but he has been hospitalized several times. But the end time around, they found out he had lung cancer. How does the doctor not see the lung when they're doing all these exams for the liver?
A lot of times the tests are very focused on a specific area. So if you're doing a scan, you may be focusing on the liver more than you are on the chest. So a lot of times it just depends on, if we don't know all of the risk factors, we don't know to look for other places, that might be a reason why. Again, I'm not vouching for them or against them, but these are specific questions you should bring back to them directly. Because I don't want to over-comment and then you go, oh, this doctor I heard over the weekend said you should have did this.
I'll give you his phone number. You can give it to your doctor. You had a question, ma'am.
Yes. My father died from lung cancer. However, I've always had this question because he smoked. So obviously, the only way you got lung cancer was to be a smoker. Then I found out you don't have to smoke or be around secondhand smoke to get cancers. So could it be hereditary or is it because of the environment only?
It very well could be. In fact, different populations, African American, there's a specific gene that there's two actually, that they've discovered that's due to a higher risk for lung cancer. Women, non-smokers, especially those of Asian descent, are high risk for developing different types of lung cancer. The more we're involved in some of these screening and some studies, we diagnose early, we're finding out. The current criteria, it changed. When it started out, it was higher age, more smoking. And then the reason they changed, they dropped it because we were missing African Americans in this. And so they changed it. One size shoe doesn't fit all. One size screening won't fit all. One size treatment won't fit all. We need to be part of some of these studies, these trials, so we can find out more about us.
But like I said earlier, you know, I've learned a lot from this presentation, and I do smoke. And I told my friend I got a nerve to be chain smoking sometimes, you know, but I got to stop. I got nicotine factor, but I got to stop because this I've learned some stuff.
Yeah.
And cancer is cancer. I don't care what you label it as, breast, liver, what. Right. Cancer is cancer. Right. And like I said, I done went to doctor several times about this saliva going up and down, up, and it just got me in my head where I got on my chart and text me an appointment. So it's real important for me to stop smoking.
49% of deaths due to cancer are secondary to cigarette smoking. So, but we know, and you heard somebody say, yeah, the package don't work. How do people go about it? It's not enough for us to say, stop smoking, because it's very addictive. It's hard. So what are some of the things that we have available for you?
A lot of the communities, they have smoking cessation classes, so they have partnership with other people going through the same thing. They have steps programs that they put you through. And then also, they have the quit line, and they kind of coach you through it. Because, you know, tobacco company, that's part of the funding that they had to do was make that readily available. So a lot of people, they don't want to go in groups. Sometimes that's just that phone call, speaking to somebody, and they'll give you tips, and they also provide nicotine patches for free.
Swap. And there's also pills that you can take, gums that you can use, all those sorts of good things. We have a question right here.
Okay, my question is, you visit your primary doctor often. Your primary sends you to the specialist. How important is it to document and keep records between the primary doctor and your new specialist? Because a lot of the time you get sent to the specialist and the communication is not going on between the primary doctor and your specialist, and you have multiple things going on, but it's no communication between the two, and then you're doing all of these exams over and over. Of course you have to, but it gets tiresome, it gets irritable, and you get frustrated and you get discouraged. So, like, speak on the importance of the communication between your primary doctor and your specialist.
But of course. Ms. Thomas, please. Then we'll ask the specialist.
I know it can be very frustrating, especially, you know, we're lucky we work in a system where the pulmonologists, we're within the system, so we see the whole chart. But a lot of communities, that's not the case. So a lot of times you have that information on your phone, but you shouldn't have to, hey, this is what I have. What I work on, use their my chart.
I know. They used to expecting their doctor to send out. Yeah.
Trust nobody.
I mean, but it's the older generation. Yeah. The phones irritate them. It's not large enough. You know what I'm saying? So, coming from the doctor.
Action from you.
Okay, first of all, you've touched my heart with the loss of your mom. I'm so sorry. I'm sincerely sorry. The one thing I want everyone to keep in mind is that no one deserves cancer. Whether or not you smoke, you do not deserve cancer. That said, if you are having symptoms or you feel like there's something wrong, persist. And if you cannot advocate for yourself, take someone with you who can advocate for you so that you can get the care that you deserve. You deserve the care.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
Dr. Doe.
There's a company out there trying to find new treatment, new therapy that works better, that has less side effects. So if you're eligible for a clinical trial, talk to your doctor, find out more about it. If you're eligible, try out the new medication, see what side effects does it have. It helps better our understanding of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic. We want to understand that this drug works for everybody.
The last key point, I just want everybody to know that we together can change how things are going with lung cancer. It starts here. You know, I can talk to somebody and they may or may not listen, but in the community, their friend, their church member, that's the person they're really going to listen to. And that's the person that's going to tell it to them straight, and sometimes that's what you need. So us together can change the way things are going.
In every aspect of life, there's one thing that can change your life, generations above you, and the generations to follow you. And that's education. It can change an entire lineage of a family. You've now had that education. Please go make a change.
Thank you.